The 2024 NFL regular season has come to an end for the Las Vegas Raiders, and unfortunately, they finished with a disappointing 4-13 record. After two back-to-back wins, they returned to Allegiant Stadium to face the Los Angeles Chargers, but lost 34-20. This loss sealed their fate, as the Raiders finished the season with a 0-6 record in the AFC West Division. The last time the Raiders went winless in the division was back in 2006, when they finished with a 2-4 record, securing the number 1 overall pick that year. At that time, they had head coach Art Shell, who was fired after just one season. It's clear that things are not looking great for Antonio Pierce as head coach. After the game, Pierce held a brief yet tense post-game press conference, and I want to dive into some of the key moments and share my take on them. When asked about his future with the team, Pierce responded with a simple, "no comment." This response came after rumors about potential trades and coaching changes had been circulating. Later, he was asked whether he felt he had been given the right tools to succeed this season. His answer was straightforward. He had 53 players on his roster, and that's who he worked with. He emphasized that no one should feel sorry for the cards they are dealt. It's clear that the Raiders face numerous challenges this season. Injuries played a significant role, and the team didn't have consistent quarterback play. The offensive coordinator struggled, and the defense didn't perform as expected. Despite all of this, Pierce's answer about how close the Raiders are to becoming a playoff team was telling. He mentioned that everyone can see there's a glaring need, which, while vague, seems to hint that the quarterback position is a major issue. Although Pierce didn't specifically address it, it's hard to ignore the elephant in the room. The Raiders need better play at quarterback to compete with the top teams in the league. When Antonio Pierce mentioned that there is a glaring need, the first thing that comes to mind is the quarterback situation. That's how I interpreted his statement, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. The last question in the press conference was where things really got uncomfortable. Pierce was asked if he thought he deserved to return as the head coach next season, and he quickly dismissed it with a no comment. Then he left the press conference abruptly after giving very little response, making the entire session less than 2 minutes long. Based on his body language, you could tell Pierce was a bit tense. He was moving around a lot and offering awkward smiles. His lack of detailed answers and the way he brushed off the final question left a lot of uncertainty hanging in the air. Personally, I think that could have been an opportunity for him to explain his case, how he got the team to keep fighting despite the odds, but instead, he simply avoided it and left. Now, the question is, does Antonio Pierce know something we don't? Could he be aware that his time as the Raiders head coach is running out? With Black Monday coming up tomorrow, we could hear news about the future of the coaching staff. I hope we get that clarity soon, because regardless of what happens, the Raiders have a lot of work to do this offseason. If a new head coach is hired, we'll need to overhaul the coaching staff, bring in a new offensive coordinator, and possibly part ways with Patrick Graham. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's important to figure out what's happening sooner rather than later. As for the game, I think it was a wake-up call for this team. After a couple of weeks of playing weaker opponents like the Jacksonville Jaguars with their backup quarterback and the New Orleans Saints without their starting QB, this game really showed where the Raiders stand. It was a hard reality check for the team and a reminder of how much work lies ahead. Going into this game against the playoff-bound Los Angeles Chargers, the Raiders had a lot of motivation. They had a chance to not only help their head coach, Antonio Pierce, but also go on a potential 3-game winning streak. A win would have strengthened Pierce's case to stay as head coach. Additionally, if the Raiders had won, they could have made things a lot tougher for the Chargers heading into the postseason. A victory would have meant the Chargers would face the Baltimore Ravens on the road, a much tougher matchup compared to the Houston Texans, who they now play. However, despite all the potential, the Raiders were completely dominated in every aspect of the game. The Chargers controlled the time of possession, running more plays and spending almost double the time on the field. That shows just how well they managed to establish the run and control the game. The Chargers scored on 7 consecutive drives, with Justin Herbert finishing 28 of 36 for 346 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Ultimately, this game served as a reality check. While many fans were excited about the recent wins, I wasn't impressed. Yes, it's always nice to win, but the victories over teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars, who were struggling with a backup quarterback, didn't mean much to me. This game proved the difference when facing a playoff-caliber team. We were simply outmatched. The Chargers dominated us, and it's clear we have a lot of work to do for 2025. As a result of this loss, combined with a win by the New York Jets, the Raiders are now positioned to have the 6th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Not terrible, considering we were at number 8 last week. If we had won, we could have dropped to the 10th spot, so it could have been worse. I would have been really disappointed if the Raiders had dropped lower than the 6th pick. It's not terrible, but considering how much bad football the team had to endure this season, it's a bit frustrating not to be in the top 3. Unfortunately for the Raiders, this season was a tough one to be a bad team since there were so many struggling teams across the league. It's going to be an interesting offseason, especially as we watch how the draft board shakes out. Right now, the Tennessee Titans hold the number 1 overall pick, and they're in desperate need of a quarterback. They'll likely choose between Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders at that spot. At number 2, the Cleveland Browns also have Deshaun Watson, but I wouldn't be surprised if they move on from him and pick a quarterback. The New York Giants are in a similar situation, needing a quarterback. So there's a good chance we could see 3 quarterbacks taken in the top 5. As for New England and Jacksonville, I don't expect them to go after quarterbacks, especially New England, but Jacksonville might be a wild card, especially with a potential new head coach and the uncertainty around their quarterback situation. For the Raiders, at number 6, it might be tough to get one of the top quarterbacks unless they trade up. We'll have to wait and see how things unfold. Another factor to consider this offseason is the Tom Brady effect. He's now a minority owner of the Raiders, and there have been reports suggesting that he will have significant influence on football operations, including the decision to select a quarterback. It'll be interesting to see how much say he has, and whether he'll have a hand in key decisions, potentially even taking on a bigger role than the current GM, Dave Ziegler. There's a lot of uncertainty and plenty to consider, which makes this offseason incredibly important for the Raiders. It looks like Antonio Pierce's time as head coach might be coming to an end. The writing seems to be on the wall, and he may be a one-and-done coach. Raider Nation, I want to hear from you. Do you think Antonio Pierce is done as the Raiders head coach? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you're new to the channel and love Raider-related content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We've got a lot of news coming your way, so stay tuned. That's all for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.